In the early morning of November 13th, 2022, a tragedy unfolded in a quiet college town. Four University of Idaho students were found brutally stabbed to death in their shared rental home near the campus. The victims were Madison Mogen and Xana Kernodle, who lived in the house and worked at the same local restaurant, Kaylee Goncalves, who had recently moved out but returned for a nearby party, and Ethan Chapin, Kernodle's boyfriend, who was staying over that night. Earlier that evening, Chapin and Kernodle attended an on-campus party at the Sigma Chi fraternity. They returned home around 1:45 a.m. Meanwhile, Mogen and Goncalves had gone to the Corner Club, a downtown sports bar, and were seen at the Grub Truck, a nearby food truck, before taking a ride home, arriving by 1:56 a.m. According to the surviving roommates, all four students were home by 2 a.m. Phone records show that between 2:26 and 2:52 a.m., Goncalves made 7 unanswered calls to her former boyfriend, followed by 3 unanswered calls from Mogen's phone to the same person. Police later confirmed that these calls were not connected to the crime. Around 4 a.m., a DoorDash order was delivered to Xana Kernodle. Reports initially stated that the surviving roommates were asleep on the ground floor during the attack, but the probable cause affidavit later revealed more chilling details. One surviving roommate, who was on the second floor, reported being awakened by sounds of Goncalves and her dog. She then heard what sounded like a roommate saying, "There's someone here, possibly Kernodle," as her phone was active on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. The roommate opened her door twice, hearing crying and a male voice saying, "It's okay. I'm going to help you." Security cameras near the home recorded whimpering, a loud thud, and a dog barking starting around 4:17 a.m. The roommate opened her door a third time and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask walking towards her. She did not recognize the man, who then exited through the sliding glass door. In a state of frozen shock, she locked herself in her room. The 4 victims were found stabbed to death on the second and third floors of the home. There were no signs of forced entry, and the walls were spattered with blood. Mogen and Goncalves were found together in Mogen's bedroom, while Kernodle and Chapin were found in Kernodle's room. Despite the horrific events, no calls to 911 were made until 11:58 a.m., many hours later. The call, placed from within the residence, requested aid for an unconscious person. When police arrived, the door was open, there was no sign of forced entry or damage, and nothing appeared to be missing. The surviving roommates and other friends of the victims were present, having been called over by the roommates, believing one of the victims was unconscious. All 4 victims were pronounced dead at noon. Detectives believe the killings occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. That morning, officers found Goncalves' dog unharmed at the scene. Narrator: the investigation into the brutal stabbings was spearheaded by the Moscow Police Department, with support from the Idaho State Police and the Lada County Sheriff's Office. In total, almost 130 members of law enforcement collaborated on this high-profile case. Autopsies were conducted on the victims in Spokane, Washington. The Lada County coroner revealed that all 4 students had been stabbed multiple times, with fatal wounds primarily in the chest and upper body. At least one victim showed defensive wounds, suggesting a struggle, while others appeared to have been attacked in their sleep. No signs of sexual assault were found, and all deaths were ruled homicides by stabbing. A surviving roommate described the suspect as a male stranger, around 5 feet 10 inches tall, athletically built, with bushy eyebrows. This description, along with video footage of the house from the night of the killings, helped shape the investigation. The public's response was overwhelming, with more than 2,600 emailed tips, 2,700 phone calls, and 1,000 digital media submissions by early December. By December 24th, the number of tips had grown to at least 15,000. Authorities initially left open the possibility of multiple perpetrators and confirmed that the attack was targeted, though it was unclear if the target was the residence or its occupants. On November 23rd, during a press conference, the Moscow police chief disclosed that Goncalves might have had a stalker, but this claim could not be substantiated. On December 15th, police announced a search for records of approximately 22,000 fifth-generation Hyundai Elantras, after surveillance footage showed a white or light-colored Elantra near the crime scene multiple times. Investigators in Pullman, Washington, turned their attention to Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old Ph.D. candidate and teaching assistant at Washington State University. Kohberger's Elantra, though of a later year, matched the description. Kohberger was pulled over twice by Indiana State Police while driving to Pennsylvania with his father. Despite speculation, the FBI denied directing these stops. Cell phone data showed that Kohberger's phone disconnected from the network around 2:47 a.m. in Pullman on November 13th, reconnecting around 4:48 a.m. near Blaine, Idaho. Additional data placed his phone near the victim's residence around 9 a.m. on November 13th, and at least 12 times between June 2022 and the day of the murders. Investigators found 3 unidentified male DNA samples at the crime scene, including DNA on a tan leather knife sheath in Mogan's bed. Using a public genealogy database, authorities identified a partial match to a relative of Kohberger. DNA recovered from Kohberger's family trash in Pennsylvania matched the DNA from the sheath. Bryan Christopher Kohberger, born in November 21, 1994, in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. His journey through academia was marked by achievements and a dark turn that no one saw coming. After graduating from Pleasant Valley High School in 2013, Kohberger attended Monroe Career and Technical Institute in Bartonsville but left after a year. He then pursued an associate's degree in psychology at Northampton Community College, completing it in 2018. Kohberger's academic path continued at DeSales University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in 2020 and a master's degree in 2022, both in criminal justice. In the summer of 2022, Kohberger moved to Washington State to pursue a Ph.D. in criminology at Washington State University's Pullman campus. The campus, only about a 15-minute drive from Moscow, Idaho, became the backdrop for his studies and, eventually, his arrest. At the time of his arrest, Kohberger had just completed his first semester as a doctoral student and was working as a teaching assistant. However, faculty had growing concerns about his behavior and conduct, leading to his termination from the teaching assistant role on December 19, 2022. In a news conference, Moscow Police Chief James Fry confirmed that Kohberger lived in Washington State. University police assisted Idaho law enforcement officials in executing a search warrant at Kohberger's on-campus apartment and office. Before his arrest, Kohberger was under surveillance outside his parents' Pennsylvania home. He was observed wearing surgical gloves and placing trash into neighbors' bins. A search of the home revealed a knife, a pistol, a black face mask, and ID cards in a glove inside a box. Authorities noted that Kohberger had meticulously cleaned his car, inside and out. On December 30th, an FBI SWAT team and Pennsylvania State Police arrested Kohberger at his parents' home. At the time, he was found in the kitchen, wearing a shirt and shorts and examination gloves, disposing of trash in Ziploc bags. The arrest of Bryan Kohberger marked a significant step in the pursuit of justice for the victims and their families. The investigation continues, unraveling the complexities of this chilling case. On December 30th, 2022, Bryan Kohberger was arrested on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 felony count of burglary. He was appointed a public defender and detained without bond at the Monroe County Correctional Facility in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. On January 3, 2023, Kohberger appeared at the county courthouse, where he agreed to extradition. The following day, he was flown to Pullman and driven to the Lada County Jail in Moscow, Idaho, where he was held without bail. Kohberger made his first appearance in the Lada County Courthouse on January 5th. He was formally charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary, accused of breaking into a home with the intent to commit a felony. 1 week later, on January 12th, Kohberger returned to the courthouse for a status conference. The courtroom was filled with tension as the community awaited further developments in this harrowing case. As the legal proceedings began, the victims' families and the entire community sought answers and justice for the devastating loss they had endured. The case of Bryan Kohberger, once a promising student now facing severe charges, became a focal point of national attention. On May 17, 2023, the Lada County District Court announced that Bryan Kohberger was indicted by a grand jury on 5 charges, 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. A preliminary probable cause hearing, initially scheduled for June 26, was canceled following the indictment. During his arraignment in May 2023, Kohberger refused to enter a plea. His attorney stated that Kohberger was standing silent on the charges. Consequently, the judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. On June 26, the Latah County Prosecutor's Office announced their intention to seek the death penalty, citing the alleged aggravating circumstances of the first-degree murder charges. Kohberger, who remains in the Latah County Jail without bond, has pleaded not guilty to all charges. In January 2024, the judge granted the defense access to the results of the investigative genetic genealogy testing. This testing, which used a touch sample from the sheath of a knife left behind at the crime scene, was a critical piece of evidence that first led to the investigation of Kohberger. On June 27, 2024, the judge set a trial date for June 2, 2025. The anticipation builds as the community and the nation await the unfolding of the trial, hoping for justice and answers to the tragic events that shattered so many lives.